So I'm Carl Dahlman. I'm the head of global research at the Development Center of the OECD, and we have just launched our Perspectives on Global Development 2014. It's called Boosting Productivity to Address the Middle Income Challenge. We do two main things in the report. First, we focus on the global perspective on economic activity, and a big theme that we have been pursuing is the shifting economic activity to the non-OECD countries. It turns out that with the new data of purchasing power parity, in 2010, the non-OECD countries are a bigger share of global GDP than the OECD countries, and that's very significant. The non-OECD countries have been growing faster than the OECD countries in the last decade, and so this is why there's this very strong convergence. But in the report, we look at the implications of this convergence and also on the slowdown in the growth of the emerging countries. And we see that for the long run, it's very critical to be able to boost productivity, because in the long run, only increases in productivity are going to raise incomes in the developing world. And we did a very detailed analysis of productivity in 40 countries, looking at 18 manufacturing sectors and 16 service sectors, and also for a subset of 9 countries, which are the BRICS: Brazil, Russia, India, Indonesia, China, and South Africa, plus Senegal, Colombia, and Cameroon. We actually looked at 1,000 firms and did very detailed analysis, 1 million firms, and did very detailed analysis of the productivity, total factor productivity, frontier production functions, also markups, so we can draw a lot of very important conclusions. And the 3 main findings of the report are, first of all, that the productivity levels in developing countries are still very low. We benchmarked them against the US, and in terms of labor productivity, no developing country had more than 10% of the US productivity, and total factor productivity, some had as much as 30%. But the second finding, which was surprising, was that in the period 2000 to 2008, the productivity gap with the US actually increased in most developing countries, with a few exceptions, a key exception, of course, being China. And so that was surprising and significant, because in theory, if countries are behind the technological frontier, it should be relatively easy to catch up, because a lot of knowledge already exists. However, in practice, it's quite difficult, and only a handful of countries are having very rapid growth over a long period of time. We had the East Asian mix, and now we have a country like China that's been growing very fast and increasing its productivity. And so one of the main conclusions we have is the importance of having the right kinds of policies to be able to have the rapid productivity growth. And we outline some of these policies all the way from increasing productivity in the different sectors, shifting to other sectors, the importance for diversification, and the importance of being able to tap global knowledge. We also have a whole chapter on the service sector, because the service sector has been very underdeveloped in developing countries, and it's got big potential for growth. We also look at regional inequalities within countries and the importance of trying to have strategies for them to improve. So that's at the very general level. But a very other important conclusion of the report is that if we take a look at this period of very rapid growth of developing countries, it was very special. First of all, there was a rapid increase in trade, and that favored the developing countries until the crisis. Secondly, because of China's tremendous demand for commodity imports, the price of the commodities went up, so we had a commodity price boom. But now that China is slowing down, this is going to mean that the prospects for growth for other developing countries are not as strong. And thirdly, there's going to be an increase in interest rates as the US is coming out of its crisis. And that's going to be a third impact on the context for developing country growth. So it's going to get tougher for developing countries. And that's why it's important to focus on productivity. The third thing is that in looking at the global landscape, the impact of China is very significant. If we take a look between 1990 and 2014 now, China has accounted for 14 of the 19 percentage points in increase in the share of developing countries. So it certainly has changed the economic landscape. It's been very important, as I said before, in terms of its impact on the growth of developing countries by its imports of the commodities. but also it's putting a lot of competition in terms of the manufacturers. And part of why China has been so successful is that it's had very good strategies to grow, to tap global knowledge. It can develop and implement the strategies. So a big challenge for developing countries, democratically oriented countries, is that they have to be able to get a lot of stakeholder ownership to do some of the difficult reforms. China's been able to do it because of its centralized government. And so it's a very big challenge because some of the reforms that have to be done are very painful in the short run and only give benefits in the medium and long run. And that's a problem of political economy. So that's part of the messages of the report. In the last chapter, we do an analysis of the prospects for the 6 BRICS because they represent very different types of economies. And we sort of see a process of challenge and response. What has to be done changes over time as the conditions of the country change and also what's happening in the global environment. So it's very important to have capable governments that can implement the policies that change over time. And that's the basic conclusion report, the importance of not just developing the good policies and plans, but being able to implement them. So in short, we see a very complicated landscape, a lot of new elements, tremendous global interdependence, and the importance then of having governments that can respond quite flexibly to the changing circumstances. So thank you very much.